man, dude, look at all this stuff.
Yeah, I think this is going to be our best show yet.
Yeah, I mean... Oh, wait. What's this? Huh. Imagine if this was real.
It's Dissecting Fiction with Vinny Murphy and Peter Petrizzo. Today on Dissecting Fiction...
Hellraiser.
Spawning 10 films and endless merchandise, Clive Barker's Hellraiser is one of the most popular and long-running horror franchises in history. The Hellbound Heart was first published in the Night Visions anthology in 1986, though some say Clive Barker was already developing the story as a film. Starting at Virgin Films and moving to New World Pictures, heavy hitters in the VHS horror days, the first film brings the viewer into a world of supernatural sadomasochism and introduces the Cenobites. Ah, the Cenobites. That's a real word, you know. Originally intended to be called The Hellbound Heart, or just Hellbound, New World insisted that the title be changed to something less romantic sounding. Barker chose Hellraiser, purportedly Hellraiser a love story at first, and though the studio wasn't over the moon with the choice, they went with it. In the first film, Pinhead and Company's origins are ambiguous, and their appearance unique within horror, creating immediate buzz from outlets like Fangoria. Before the first film was even released, New World Pictures smelled a hit and began quickly organizing a sequel. Now with its own universe to play with, Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, explains the origins of the Cenobites and brings Kirsty's arc to a close. With Barker working on Nightbreed at Warner Brothers, first-time director Tony Randell took over the directing reins. Expanding on Barker's basic idea that Pinhead had once been human, Hellbound placed Pinhead as a man who had fallen to the power of the Lament configuration. Hellbound was to feature many concepts that never came to fruition, including a complex sequence explaining the transformation of the Chatterer, the return of the monstrous Engineer, and the now legendary Surgeon scene. An ending was also shot that would have set up Julia as the primary villain going forward into the series. Opening in 1988, barely a year after the first installment, Hellbound would also find success in theaters. Dimension released their first installment in the series, Hell on Earth, in 1992. Director Anthony Hickox would call it sexier, faster, gorier. While Hellbound could have easily been the end of the series, Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth, would expand the mythology even further, focusing on the creation of new Cenobites. Hellraiser Bloodline was released in 1996 and was a bit of a disaster. After renowned Child's Play special effects artist Kevin Yeager dropped out as director, the production failed to complete many of the sequences in the script. Regardless, Bloodlines was still a commercial success and led to numerous direct-to-video sequels, most cobbled together from other scripts and adding the Cenobites. This sometimes brought amusing results, featuring future Superman Henry Cavill in an early role. The direct-to-video films would move back into original scripts with 2011's Revelations, and will continue with the upcoming Judgment.
Hellraiser has been a successful comic book franchise for two major companies, the Marvel Comics Epic imprint and Boom Studios. Marvel would publish an anthology format. The book would feature work from big-name creators like Neil Gaiman, Alex Ross, Bernie Wrightson, Shelley Fish, and Mike Mignola. Marvel would also publish a two-issue Nightbreed crossover entitled Jihad. By 1993, Clive Barker would launch his own imprint Razor line, but the Hellraiser comics would continue with two miniseries, The Harrowers, a Leviathan fighting group created by Barker himself, and a solo Pinhead book. In 1994, due to sagging sales across the board, Razorline and Barker's involvement with Marvel ceased. Hellraiser at Boom would be a traditional serialized story, and would be expanded through Hellraiser The Dark Watch in 2013, telling this continuing story of Kirsty and the man once known as Pinhead. Boom ended their run with Hellraiser and Bestiary, which returned to the anthology format of the original series.
So as we mentioned before, the Hellbound Heart, which would become Hellraiser, started as a novella, but I think it's fair to say that Hellraiser kind of became the predominant version of the story.
Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt. I mean, once the movie got picked up and they went into production, they developed all the Cenobites, had their own unique look and appearance, and Pinhead was born.
Right. Not a character who appeared in the novella, correct?
No. In the novella, I believe the main lead Cenobite character was female, actually. But, of course, Doug Bradley would take on the role of the horror icon. And, yeah, I love the first one. so much. We'll get into it's not my favorite, but we'll get to that in a bit. And you've pointed this out to me before. You said how you just love how it's a haunted house movie at its core.
Right. I think the first Hellraiser sort of structurally follows really like a haunted house film, as we were saying. I guess the haunting is sort of brought into the house, which is cool. You usually don't get to see something like that.
Right.
And the action kind of ends once they're out of the house.
Right. But what was also great about it is you see there's obviously a deeper connection to what these entities are and the reason why they're drawn to this house and these people. Like with Uncle Frank, with his, questionable tastes.
Well, I think it's important to kind of just come out and say, like the S&M scene, the body mod scene, these are all like huge influences on even the writing of the original novella.
Absolutely.
It's interesting to see it sort of put in this weird context where it's almost given like heightened meaning through the Cenobites. Right.
Because, as we pointed out earlier in the episode, or as you did, Cenobite is not a made-up word. What Cenobite actually means is a member of a religious order. So the term Cenobite is very appropriate for these characters, because they are, as we learn later, are part of a bigger entity.
That's interesting too. It's funny. I'm not even thinking about it. Did they ever refer to themselves as Cenobites, or anyone refer to them as Cenobites in the first film?
No, not at all.
Which is interesting because the first one's pretty ambiguous, kind of what's going on.
Right. But even with it being ambiguous, we still get glimpses of this bigger universe. I mean, like we see the engineer,
right,
in that one scene, who never appears in any of the other movies. But still, they're showing you that there are other creatures that exist in this mythos other than the main Cenobites we see, these main demons we see, rather.
Then even, I would say, Pinhead's dialogue in the film is indicative that there's something bigger going on, that it isn't just him running around the house, trying to torture this one guy.
There's definitely an ominous implication of a bigger presence, I'd say.
What I think is interesting too, I was Leviathan, the documentary that's on the Scarlet Box, which we should talk about probably right now a little bit too.
Yeah.
They to get into this whole thing that I guess going into Hellraiser, the general idea was simply that Pinhead had been a person.
Right.
And that was sort of how things were played, even though there was no specifics at that point. And I don't even think Barker really had a clear idea at that point.
Yeah, no.
From my understanding.
No, I think they really formed Pinhead's origin in Part 2. That's when it really started taking form and shape.
So, we start with the first film is very sort of self-contained, I think. It was not necessarily something you would think would need a sequel if you were to just see it, not knowing what was coming. Right. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like the first film
on its own.
On its own, and not only on its own. This is something we disagree on. I like the simplicity of Hellraiser. I like not knowing what the Cenobites are.
Oh, no. I do too. Don't get me wrong. And again, you get an implication of a bigger presence at the end with the bone dragon demon.
Yeah, the very bizarre bone dragon that appears.
But actually, in Hellraiser mythos, that character was supposed to be a box guardian. Okay. Who's actually one of the... I used to be obsessed with Hellraiser mythology back when I was in high school, so... he was actually... they're these creatures that take the box away whenever it's kind of left... left out
unattended,
in the open.
Unwanted.
Yeah, and they bring it to wherever else it is needed.
This is interesting, especially with 2, if you look at it from that perspective. So, as you're saying, 1 kind of self-contained.
Right.
You really have Julia as kind of the driving force behind it. Frank's a ghost.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Cenobites are something worse.
Yeah.
I guess it's sort of a non-committal ending to it being over.
Right.
Even though it is over, the thing takes the box away, right?
Yeah.
So 2.
Right. 2 begins.
We come into 2.
But what's interesting with 2 is we also we see for the first time that there are other boxes. It's not just the one.
Right.
We see in Dr. Chenard's home office that he has other boxes on display in there. So, and we see, this is why I love 2, because it dwells more into the mythology. I love the idea of a vague haunted house plot. That's fine, but I just really loved Dr. Chenard as a character. And
I don't disagree with you as a character. Like, I don't think... I would never say, like, Hellraiser 2, Hellbound, is a bad movie. I just like Hellraiser more. My problem is with Hellbound is it does what you have to do. Is you have to immediately expand the universe.
Right.
Now, Barker had a lot of influence over that script.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, I suppose some of it was intended to be there, and I think what you were saying about the Box Guardian thing is kind of cool if you look at Dr. Chenard.
Right.
Because he has all of them, and partially because maybe you want to look at the perspective, the reason he gets to keep them is because they know he's going to use them. And you know it's going to be, like, what they want.
Right, yeah.
Which is an interesting idea to introduce that early into it. But the problem is, of course, like I said, like, I didn't know the whole Box Guardian thing. I've watched all those movies a ton of times.
Like, you know what that thing was at the end?
Yeah, I didn't have any idea of why it took it away. It was just sort of like, okay, the movie's over, bye.
Right.
Oh, hello there. Well, after you've followed us and liked us on YouTube, be sure to check out our other social media. Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Just look for Dissecting Fiction. We've got a ton of bonus content on there, and sometimes some previews for upcoming episodes.
So, now that we are in different chairs, we can finally talk about Hellraiser 3.
Chairs made a lot of difference.
Yeah, definitely. So Hellraiser 3 was actually the first Hellraiser film that was an U.S. production.
United States production.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, even more significant, especially because of how small the production on 1 and 2 kind of was.
Right.
And this also is bringing a lot of different people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Peter Atkin's still there.
Yes. Anthony Hickox was brought on to direct. He also directed Waxwork. I'm not sure if he directed Waxwork 2, but that's not important. So Hellraiser came out to Hellraiser 3 came out to good success at the box office.
I think we've spoken about this in the past a little bit too. 3 in a horror series is a big deal.
Right.
Just because by the time you get to that, you've already stretched your plot a little bit, and 3 is kind of your make or break. You either have to kind of pivot and go in a different direction, or fail, basically.
Definitely. But Hellraiser 3 it had quite a bit of stuff that worked for me, but I watched it again like a month or so ago for the first time in probably honestly, I'd say 8 years.
Wow.
And yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, no, because I haven't had the DVD because it's been out of print for God knows how long.
Right.
And when they finally put out the Scarlet box set, I was finally able to get my hands on it again.
Right.
And watch it. So, obviously, I took the opportunity, and like I said, there's a lot in it that works for me, but at the same time, you can tell that it's a different production.
I totally agree. I think it's interesting, though, that Hellraiser 3 was the first Hellraiser I ever saw. I didn't see any of the other films before that. In fact, I don't think I got into the first 2 until maybe really late high school, early college.
Okay.
Which I think is good, because I don't think it really has the weight.
Right.
If you watch it as a 12-year-old.
Okay. I saw it when I was 12.
I'm talking more like your interpretation of it was different when you saw it when you were 12.
Right. Fair point.
What I do kind of appreciate this, and this goes back to like that whole like theme of the third movie.
Right.
2 kind of establishes this idea that like Cenobites are makeable.
Right.
Like,
yes.
you can make a Cenobite.
You can create them.
3 kind of establishes that it could happen pretty quickly.
Yeah. and Pinhead could do it. Who knew?
Well, he turned into a giant like obelisk, so he could pretty much do anything.
Yeah, exactly. This was the first time they introduced the idea of Pinhead actually being able to create his own Cenobites.
Right.
Which is interesting. And I gotta say, it has one of my all-time favorite Pinhead scenes. The one when he goes into the church.
Absolutely. That was like burned into my brain when I was a kid. Like when I saw that, that's the image that was in my head.
I am the way.
That's pretty good. Now I'm scared.
Love it. Love that scene. But again, like I said, you can tell it's an American production. Some of the dialogue is kind of corny. Right. A little cornier than the first 2. And I had a little hard time swallowing that corn.
I would say like the sex scenes, things like that, are a little like goofier.
Yeah, they're
like,
awkward.
They're that kind of. They're like a slasher movie sex scene. They're not, this sort of like creepy thing that you get in the first one.
Fucking JP. Oh. But we'll cut that. So. Another thing that caught my mind was that when I was younger, when I saw Hellraiser 3, the character J.P. Monroe, I thought he was fine, but for some reason when I watched it again, he really got on my nerves, like really badly. I
feel like that might just be sort of perceiving ridiculousness. And this movie is a lot more ridiculous than the first 2, I should say.
Yeah. I don't know. He didn't do it for me as like the lead antagonist, or one of the lead antagonists. He didn't do it for me. When I watched it again, like
I think there's definitely like way less investment in any of the characters in that because Pinhead's so central at this point.
Right.
And Pinhead's what people were going to the movies for. That was the poster. That was the image,
Right.
They were marketing it like a slasher film, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
But it kind of started to veer that way.
Well, at this point, you can clearly tell that the studio is trying to turn Pinhead into this slasher horror icon.
Right.
Which
was effective, I think. I don't think...
Yes, but he's not meant to be a slasher character. That's not his point.
I think the massacre at the nightclub
at the club
is easily one of the most violent things ever shot.
Oh, another notable thing about Part 3, Peter Atkins worked on the script, but it was also the first time he would actually star in a Hellraiser movie. He played the bartender who would later be turned into the Cenobite Barbie.
So, another Cenobite. And like I said, that kind of becomes the theme of the movie, is like, okay, now Cenobite is a non-stop sort of process.
Right.
And that's kind of where 4 and the direct-to-video sequels go.
So, next up would be Part 4, Pinhead in Space.
See, alright, I know Bloodline is a complete disaster, but even that bothers me, because I don't see, you're going to this rapid expansion thing, right? You're trying to make the story, huge. I don't think it's necessarily a dumb choice.
No, honestly, I'm going to say it right now, I like Bloodline. I'm going to say it flat out. I like it as a Hellraiser movie. It works for me. I really like the character of Angelique. I like that we now have this new female antagonist who is connected directly to the Cenobites, who is a Cenobite herself, in a way.
Right, I think that's kind of a cool dynamic. Right. Something that I know from reading portions of the full script, that parts that were not included in the film, as was mentioned before, that there was supposed to be more of a battle between Angelique and Pinhead for sort of control of the power.
There's even, if you can find it online, There's an edited scene from Hellraiser Bloodlines where Angelique is. It's back during the colonial era when Le Marchand, the puzzle box maker, the toy maker. When he first makes the box and brings it to the magician in the film, there is a sequence where Angelique is like stripping for these for some of the magician's friends, and then of course Hellraiser stuff starts happening. All the walls start exploding and everyone gets killed.
Well, not killed.
Oh.
Because they turn into Cenobites, which there's pictures of.
Oh, she does turn them into Cenobites?
Yeah.
Okay. You gotta forgive me, it's been a while since I saw that deleted scene.
Yeah, there's some effort to get a lot of that footage back together to do like a special edition of 4.
Because what I saw, a lot of the finished special effects weren't even in it. It was part of the work print, the deleted scene I saw. Yeah.
There's an effort to get a lot of the footage from 4 back together.
Right.
There's no way to cut it together the way it's supposed to be because they didn't shoot most of what they needed.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why directors leave and the production kind of falls apart and it gets edited weird. It's why I think the space thing comes off kind of weird.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been as weird had you have actually gotten the whole story.
Right. But it worked for me. It did. It worked for me. I don't know about the rest of you, but it worked for me. And yeah, I thought it was. I honestly thought Bloodline was a good closer to the Hellraiser film franchise. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but it had a good enough ending to where I was like, okay, now we can end this.
Right.
We don't need to go any further than this.
And once again, as we were talking about before, it takes the ending of 3, which kind of was this weird, like, okay, now there's a box building.
Right.
And expands on that, just like they all do. And that's kind of where the logic ends, is at the end of 4, even as all over the place as it is.
Because I like that concept in 4 of, like, this bloodline of this toy maker going from, like, generation to generation to eventually, the last descendant in the bloodline's like, I finally have the means and was able to create this ultimate trap to finally kill Pinhead.
Right.
I thought that was a cool way to end the series.
But they didn't.
Yeah. Nope.
They did not end the series.
Nope.
And we get into, let's see, can we do it? How good are we at this? Let's do it. Can we do the order?
Alright, okay. Wait, I got this. I got this. First there was Inferno. Then Hellseeker. Then Deader. And then Hellworld. And then Revelations.
And we don't have, like, Revelations kind of a separate thing. So really ending with Hellworld, the sort of original...
Right, yeah.
This guy run.
That was yes, Hellworld was the last Hellraiser film to feature Doug Bradley as the icon Pinhead.
Right. Those movies aren't so good.
Right.
There's a couple of times where they'll tap into cool stuff.
Well, as you said before...
Like Kirsty coming back.
Well, as you said before, they were just scripts that Miramax had, Dimension had lying around and was like, we should make another one of those Cenobite movies. The rights are going to dry up soon. Just throw it in one of these scripts.
Yeah, I don't think it's any more obvious than in Hellworld.
Yeah.
Like, you can watch Hellworld as Hellraiser Hellworld, and it basically isn't a Hellraiser movie when you're watching it.
Yeah.
It's just sort of...
It's terrible.
It's like, there's Pin... Okay, he was there for a second.
Lance Henriksen?
There's nothing against Lance Henriksen.
No, but I'm saying at least you got him in there.
Yeah. And then Revelations was an original script.
Yes. Revelations was actually the first time they wrote an original script for the Hellraiser film franchise since Part 4. Unfortunately, it came out terribly.
We'll just say had lower production value.
Well, yes.
2-week shoot, lower production value. And that was in place of a Barker script. If I'm correct, he was trying to develop a reboot at that point, which is why, tying back to something else they've already seen, he jumped to Boom to write those stories, because apparently that was sort of the direction he was going to go. That's the implication I've gotten.
Okay, right.
He was developing a reboot,
and then
it kind of got dumped.
And then he took that concept to comic book form with Boom.
Right.
Okay.
That's the implication. I couldn't say that 100%. I never heard anyone say that directly, that was what he was going to do, but one can assume that was what was in the back of his head, so at least it's probably related in some way.
Right. For me, the biggest problem with Revelations was the casting, honestly. And not just Pinhead. The entire cast just felt like no one wanted to be there. We try to keep things positive here on the show, folks, but there's just no excuse when you have a production that bad. I'm sorry.
I haven't seen it. I can't speak to this.
And there's a lot of stuff in Revelations I wanted to like.
Right.
Because, like I said, they put more of the Hellraiser mythos into Revelations, which I appreciated. But it's why'd you even bother? Why? So yeah.
And then this year we're supposed to get Judgment.
Yes,
right?
Which again, details on that have been very vague.
Yeah, we were trying to find a little bit more to talk about it, and we couldn't find all that much other than 2017 and supposedly getting a short theatrical run.
And supposedly there's those promo shots that they put
I really
out.
only saw one picture, but I know you were digging a little bit.
Yeah, I saw a few more of the Cenobites of how they're gonna look and stuff, and how Pinhead's new look is gonna be. But again, they looked like fan film production shots. They didn't feel like this was gonna be an official Hellraiser release. So I wasn't even sure if it was for Judgment at first when I saw these pictures. I was like, is this just some photographer who because around the time that they put these it's weird because around the time that put these photos out, and you can look this up too, there was this photographer who was just doing Hellraiser shots. He was dressing up people like Cenobites and doing photo shoots with them, and they, and of course those photos were ending up on horror sites.
Right.
So I was confused. I was like, wait, is this for Judgment or is this just this photographer? So I was getting confused. So I don't really know what's going on with Judgment.
You know what? At the end of the day, we got what? 2 great movies.
Yeah.
1 good movie. 1 arguably good movie, and then a bunch of other movies. So we can't really complain, right? It's a lot of movies.
Yeah.
A lot of movies on a topic that we love.
Right, absolutely. In the end of the day, a horror icon was born. One of the biggest horror franchises to ever be conceived still continues to haunt the minds of the youth and old alike.
That sounds like it was scripted. I like that.
To haunt the minds of the youth and old alike to this day. So, hey, hats off to Clive Barker.
One of Pete Atkins.
Peter. I was getting to it, man. Peter Atkins, Tony Randell. Just
Anthony Hitchcock.
Anthony Hitchcock. So I'll give it to him. I'll give it to him. All right.
Even Kevin Yeager, though he doesn't want to be associated.
Yeah. Oh wait. You mean Alan Smithy?
Oh yeah. He directed that movie, right?
Yeah. But, in the end of the day, we got some great movies, some great mythology by one of my all-time favorite writers, and yours as well. So, are you going to open it?
We can't afford that.
Oh, yeah.
Dissecting Fiction is sponsored in part by
the X-Line Group.
And that's it.
I thought it was a little long, but it was alright, right?